Welcome to Development Book Club. Today we're going to continue with the bare bones of the Buddha's teaching. We'll talk about the third and fourth Noble Truths, and we will begin to just barely unpack the Eightfold Path, which is the fourth Noble Truth. All right, let's hop in. So the third Noble Truth is the end of suffering. That good news, there is one. There's a quote from Shinzen Young, a sort of equation of suffering, which is P times R equals S, which is pain times resistance equals suffering. And notice that it's not pain plus resistance, but the resistance actually has a multiplicative effect on the result of suffering. And here again, the author asks us to question our own motives, like why are we doing this? What is the underlying purpose of our practice? Is this about A, life improvement, calming the mind to reduce dissatisfaction and discomfort, or is it B, about a radical awakening, the idea of complete liberation within this lifetime? And this can be a slippery sort of question if we're number two here, because the ego itself is would be very happy and proud to attain complete liberation. It'd be quite a feat, right? That's the third noble truth, that there is an end to suffering. The fourth noble truth is the Eightfold Path, and the term in Pali is Atthangika-magga, which means a path of 8 aspects, folds, or steps. And there's 8 pieces, 3 main sections, which we're going to spend a lot of time unpacking, really. But just for now, the 3 main sections are Sila, or morality. So that includes right speech, right conduct, and right living. Samadhi, or concentration, and that includes right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. And Prajna, which is wisdom, which are the last 2, right understanding or view, same thing, and right thought. We actually will, the point is made here as we move into the chapter on right understanding, that people, when they're introduced to meditation, is usually maybe the first way, not necessarily by a book like this, but that we think they need to have like really good, strong meditation techniques, and that's actually not the case as far as the beginning goes. So we begin with right understanding for a particular reason, and that will come up right now. So that is called Samma-ditthi. So Samma meaning the word in Pali for right, ditthi for understanding or view. There's a quote from the Buddha in this chapter. It says, "To understand suffering, to understand the origin of suffering, to understand the extinction of suffering, and to understand the path that leads to the extinction of suffering." So again, that's the 4 noble truths. Suffering, the origin, the extinction, and the path that leads to the extinction of suffering. This, the Buddha says, is called right understanding. And to continue, to understand the symptoms of a diseased mind is right understanding. To understand the cause of a diseased mind is that the cause of that is greed, hatred, delusion. That is right understanding. And to understand that these poisons are products of our own minds, that is right understanding. So again, as a break with what we would call Western religion here, that these poisons are products of our own mind, not some external evil force, but there is something within us. And there are 10 main poisons that are listed. So I'll run through those really quickly, which is the destruction of human beings, stealing, unskillful sexual activity, lying, gossip, harsh, crude language, silly chatter, covetousness, ill will, and wrong views. And the idea here is that if we listen to the patient teacher, he cautions us, so the Buddha or anyone else that's patient, cautions us that the journey of the Eightfold Path begins with right understanding, not some fabulous skill in meditation, which I think is something that maybe meditation is the first sort of introduction that people have to Buddhism. And the idea here is that in the midst of our suffering, that there is a glimmer of truth that can open our eyes to the possibility of leaving like samsara, like the process of birth and death and struggling with pleasure and pain. In this life, we can leave that. And there's a chain called dependent origination, or the 12 nidanas is the way that is the term in Pali, which we will begin to unpack next time. So sort of to orient ourselves on a map, we have the 4 noble truths, the 4th of which is the Eightfold Path. So step 4 is really 8 steps or 8 things. And in those 8, the first one we cover right understanding or right view. And a big part of that is dependent origination, how things come into being. And that is also the 12 Nidanas, which we will begin to unpack next time.